Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. This text looks at some recent news about Donald Trump. Many things have happened involving his actions and words. We will look at several important topics in the next chapters. One big topic is trade, especially with China. There has been a disagreement about buying and selling goods between the United States and China. Both countries started putting extra costs, called taxes or tariffs, on things they buy from each other. This started around early April. The taxes got bigger quickly. We will look at how much these taxes are. We will also see what kinds of products are affected, like clothes, toys, and things from farms. There were also talks about maybe stopping these extra taxes. Some other countries also talked about trade with the United States. Another important area is education, specifically Harvard University. The government stopped giving a large amount of money, about $2 billion, to this famous school. The government asked Harvard to change some things. These changes are about how they hire people, how they choose students, and what they teach. The reason given was about problems with antisemitism, which means negative actions or feelings towards Jewish people. Harvard did not agree with the government's requests. After this, there was talk about Harvard maybe having to pay taxes. Usually, schools like Harvard do not pay these taxes. We will also look at money matters inside the United States. Donald Trump spoke about the head of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is like the main bank for the country. Trump did not agree with the bank's decisions about interest rates. Interest rates affect how much it costs to borrow money. He said the head of the bank was often wrong about these decisions. Finally, we will touch on some other news involving the United States and other countries. This includes new actions related to building ships in China and putting fees on Chinese ships coming to U.S. ports. There were also comments about helping to make peace between Russia and Ukraine, and under what conditions the U.S. might help. The next chapters will give more details about each of these subjects. We will explain what happened step by step. The information is presented to give a clear picture of these events. We try to show the information fairly without taking sides. This will help you understand the different situations discussed in the news. 2. New taxes on goods. A big disagreement about trade started between the United States and China. This problem became serious very quickly. It began when the U.S. government decided to change how trade worked with China. On April 2nd, the president announced a plan. The plan was to put new taxes on many different goods that came into the U.S. from China. These special taxes are often called tariffs. Tariffs are fees added to the price of products when they cross a country's border. This usually makes these imported products more expensive for people to buy. This announcement on April 2nd was a major change. It showed that the U.S. government wanted to make trading with China different. One reason for doing this could be to encourage people in the U.S. to buy more American-made things because the Chinese things would cost more money. It was a way to try and balance trade between the two countries. China did not wait long to react. Soon after the U.S. announcement, the Chinese government said it would do something similar. China announced its own new taxes. These taxes were put on many goods coming from the United States into China. This was China's response to the U.S. action. It meant that American products sent to China, like food or machines, would now become more expensive for Chinese people and businesses to buy. China wanted to show it would protect its own trade interests. Events moved very fast after these first announcements. Within just 1 week, the situation got bigger. Both countries decided to add even more taxes on each other's goods. These were additional taxes, on top of any existing ones. Both the US and China put extra taxes of 125% on many imports from the other country. This large percentage showed that the trade disagreement was becoming very serious. Many kinds of products felt the effect of these new taxes. Everyday things made in China, such as the clothes people wear every day and the toys children play with, got new U.S. taxes. Many other items made in Chinese factories were also on the list. These are sometimes called manufactured goods. In return, important goods from the U.S. faced new taxes going into China. This included food grown on American farms. Examples are crops like soybeans or fruit. These farm products are known as agricultural goods. Also, advanced items like computers, electronic parts, and other technology made in the U.S. got new Chinese taxes. These are called high-tech equipment. This quick exchange of new taxes between the two powerful countries marked the start of a difficult period in trade. Businesses and shoppers in both countries started to worry about rising prices for many common items. 3. Taxes get bigger. The disagreement over trade between the United States and China grew much larger. After the first taxes started, things quickly got more serious. The U.S. government announced a very big increase in taxes on goods imported from China. These new taxes were extremely high, reaching up to 245% on some products. This was a huge jump compared to the taxes announced just a short time before. It showed that the trade conflict was escalating quickly and becoming much more severe. The White House released official information explaining this big change. A document called a fact sheet provided the details about these sweeping new taxes. It confirmed the maximum rate of 245%. This official paper showed everyone the government's plan to put much more pressure on trade with China. This action made the trade conflict between the two world powers much sharper. China gave its view on this development. Officials in China made a statement about the situation. They said that if the U.S. just kept increasing tax numbers, like playing a game, China would ignore it. They called it the tariff numbers game. This suggested China did not see raising taxes higher and higher as a useful way to solve the trade problems. They seemed tired of the back-and-forth increases. While this was happening with China, the U.S. was also busy talking with other nations about trade. The same White House fact sheet mentioned these separate discussions. It said that representatives from more than 75 other countries had contacted the U.S. They wanted to talk about making new trade agreements. These talks showed that the U.S. was trying to arrange trade deals with many parts of the world. These talks had an important result for most of those countries. The U.S. decided to pause the higher taxes planned for them. This meant that while discussions were going on, the increased taxes would not start. It created a space for negotiation. But this pause did not include China. The fact sheet clearly stated that the pause was only for countries involved in friendly talks. Because China had responded to U.S. taxes with its own taxes, the new, higher U.S. taxes on Chinese goods were not stopped. They continued as planned. This put China in a different position compared to the many other countries talking with the U.S. The trade fight remained very active between the U.S. and China. 4. Talking about trade. The trade problems between the United States and China grew very large. As we saw before, both countries started putting special taxes on things they bought from each other. These taxes are called tariffs. First, one country added tariffs, then the other country added tariffs too. This happened again and again, like a game where each side does something back. The taxes kept getting bigger. This situation, often called a trade war, made many businesses and people worried. It affected the prices of many things people buy, like clothes and electronics. It also affected farmers and companies that sell their products to China. After a time of increasing these taxes, there was some news that things might change. It seemed possible that the pattern of adding more and more taxes might stop. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke about this. He told reporters that he did not want the tariffs on Chinese goods to increase anymore. His reason was simple. He said that if the taxes go too high, it reaches a point where people cannot afford the goods, or they decide not to buy them. This would hurt trade and business, which he did not want. Then President Trump shared some important information. He said that officials from China had contacted the U.S. government. According to him, China wanted to start talks again. This was a significant development. For a while, it seemed like the two countries were mostly disagreeing and adding taxes, not talking about solutions. The idea that China reached out suggested a possible change in direction. President Trump sounded positive about these possible talks. He suggested that a new trade agreement or deal could be made quite quickly. He thought it might only take about 3 or 4 weeks to finish a deal. If the U.S. and China could agree on new rules for trade, it could stop the tariff increases. This was potentially very good news for companies and workers affected by the trade war. However, President Trump also made it clear that not every issue would be solved so fast. He mentioned the situation with TikTok. TikTok is a very popular video app that comes from a Chinese company. There were separate concerns and discussions about TikTok in the U.S. President Trump said that finding an agreement or solution for the TikTok issue would probably take more time. It was a different problem from the general trade tariffs. So even if a main trade deal happened soon, the TikTok matter would likely need its own talks later. This showed that the relationship and disagreements were complex, with different parts moving at different speeds. People and businesses were waiting to see if these talks would happen and lead to a real agreement in the next few weeks. 5. School money issues. The government recently made a significant decision involving Harvard University. Harvard is one of the oldest and most well-known universities in the United States. The administration decided to stop giving federal money to Harvard for now. Federal money is money that comes from the central U.S. government. The amount involved is very large. approximately $2 billion. In British money, this is about £1.5 billion. This funding is very important for the university. Harvard uses most of this money to support research projects carried out by its professors and students. The White House announced it is freezing these funds. Freezing means the money is stopped and Harvard cannot receive it at this time. Stopping the money was not the only action. The White House also demanded that Harvard make several important changes. These changes affect key parts of how the university operates. The government wants Harvard to alter its hiring practices, which means changing how it chooses new employees. It also wants Harvard to modify its admissions process, which is how students are selected to attend the university. Furthermore, the administration asked for changes to teaching practices, meaning how subjects are taught in classrooms. The government provided a specific reason for taking these steps. The White House stated that these changes are needed to help fight anti-Semitism on the Harvard campus. Anti-Semitism involves negative feelings, words, or actions directed towards Jewish people. The administration believes Harvard needs to do more to address this issue, and the requested changes are part of the solution. This move against Harvard appears connected to a wider effort by the Trump administration. President Trump has expressed a desire to reshape top American universities. He plans to use the power of federal funding to encourage these changes. Many universities rely on government money, especially for research in science, medicine, and other fields. By threatening to withhold these funds, the administration hopes universities will follow its directions. Stopping the money for Harvard is a major example of this approach. It signals that the government is serious. This situation creates a clear conflict between the administration and a leading university, focusing attention on university governance and campus issues. 6. School tax ideas. Harvard University did not agree with the changes the White House wanted. As the oldest university in the United States, Harvard decided to say no to the government's demands. This happened on Monday. The university leaders felt the White House was trying to have too much control over how the school works. Remember, the government had asked Harvard to change several important things. These included how it chooses new workers, how it decides which students can study there, and what is taught in its classes. The reason given by the White House was to fight problems of anti-Semitism on the university campus. When Harvard refused these demands, President Trump suggested a strong action in response. He used social media on Tuesday morning to share his idea. He proposed that Harvard could lose its special tax status. This status is known as being tax-exempt, and it is very important for big universities and many other groups. Let's understand what tax-exempt means. It is a special rule that says an organization does not have to pay certain federal taxes. Many universities, like Harvard, have this status. Charities and religious groups often have it too. Not paying these taxes helps these organizations save a large amount of money. This money can then be used for their main goals, such as education, helping people, or research. So this tax-free status is a very valuable financial help. However, this special status is not guaranteed forever. There are rules that organizations must follow to keep it. For instance, a tax-exempt group usually cannot participate in political campaigns for or against candidates. It also needs to continue working towards its original purpose, like education or charity work. If an organization breaks these rules, the government can decide to remove its tax-exempt status. This means the organization would have to start paying those taxes. So suggesting this for Harvard was a serious step. It showed the government was prepared to use financial pressure against the university. Later that same Tuesday, the White House gave more comments. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, explained that President Trump wanted an apology from Harvard. The administration felt that Harvard was still allowing anti-Semitism and not doing enough to stop it. He wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize, Ms. Leavitt stated clearly. This demand for an apology added to the pressure on the university. The disagreement between the government and one of the country's top schools was growing, and now included the serious idea of changing its tax situation. 7. Talking about the bank. Donald Trump recently talked a lot about the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States. People often call it the Fed. The main person in charge of the Fed is Jerome Powell. Mr. Powell has the job title of Chair of the Federal Reserve. This is a very important position. Mr. Trump showed that he did not agree with Mr. Powell's actions. The big disagreement was about interest rates. Interest rates are a tool the Fed uses to manage the country's economy. They affect how much money people pay when they borrow money, for example, to buy a house or a car. Businesses also pay interest when they borrow money to grow or buy new machines. If interest rates go up, borrowing becomes more expensive. If interest rates go down, borrowing becomes cheaper. Mr. Trump thinks the interest rates set by the Fed are too high. He wants Mr. Powell and the Federal Reserve to make the interest rates lower. He believes lower rates would help the economy grow faster. Mr. Trump said that Mr. Powell did not lower the rates at the right time. On his social media account, Mr. Trump used strong words to criticize Mr. Powell. He wrote that Mr. Powell is always too late and wrong with his decisions about interest rates. To support his point, Mr. Trump looked at Europe. He mentioned the European Central Bank, or ECB. The ECB is the central bank for many countries in Europe. Mr. Trump said the ECB planned to lower its interest rates. He used this to argue that the U.S. Federal Reserve should also lower its rates. He felt the Fed was behind other central banks. Later, Mr. Trump spoke to journalists about Mr. Powell again. He told them he thinks Mr. Powell would resign if Mr. Trump asked him to leave his job. To resign means to quit your job, but Mr. Powell has spoken about this before. Mr. Powell has said in the past that he would not resign if the president asked him to. The Federal Reserve is designed to be independent. This means it should make decisions based on what is best for the economy, not based on pressure from politicians. The chair of the Fed serves a fixed term. This disagreement highlights different ideas about the best way to help the U.S. economy. Mr. Trump wants lower borrowing costs, but the Fed aims to keep prices stable and employment high using its own economic information. 8. More world news items. The United States government has taken new steps regarding trade with China. These actions focus on the business of building ships. The government announced new charges for ships that are built in China. These ships will have to pay extra money when they arrive at ports in the United States. This decision was made after the government studied China's shipbuilding business. The study looked at China's rules and actions. It decided that these actions were not fair to the United States. It said they make trade harder for American companies and cause problems for U.S. business. The U.S. Trade Representative, Jamison Greer, talked about this decision. He stated that ships are very important for the country. They help keep the American economy safe. They also help goods move easily between countries. Mr. Greer explained the new charges are meant to solve some problems. He said the government wants to lessen China's strong control over shipbuilding in the world. These actions are also aimed at fixing problems with supply chains. Supply chains are the ways goods get from where they are made to where they are sold. Problems here can mean delays or higher costs for people in the U.S. Mr. Greer also said that putting charges on Chinese ships sends a message. It shows that the United States wants more ships to be built in America. The goal is to support American workers and companies that build ships. In other world news, President Trump spoke about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. He mentioned that the United States might help the two countries agree on peace. Finding peace is important for many people in the world. However, Mr. Trump said there is an important condition for U.S. help. Both Russia and Ukraine must show they really want peace. They need to work together seriously. The U.S. needs to see signs that things can get better quickly. Working towards peace means both sides must be willing to talk and make changes. President Trump also explained what would happen if this condition is not met. If one country, either Russia or Ukraine, makes it very hard to reach an agreement, the U.S. will step back. He told reporters the U.S. would take a pass and decide not to help in that situation. He said they would tell the difficult country that they are being foolish. He also used strong words like horrible people. But Mr. Trump added that he hopes this does not happen. He hopes the U.S. will be able to help. He wants both countries to try hard to find peace so the U.S. can support them in making an agreement. This shows the American position on getting involved in these important peace talks.